I realized I sucked. I was really bad at selling phones, but I really enjoyed talking to people.
Yeah.
And I remember getting really, really scolded by my then manager. Like, what are you doing? A lady in a vegetable stall can sell more than what you can sell. What did I really pick up from my years in advertising? And a lot of it was through my travels, right? I remember once I took 20 days and he was like trying to call me and like, it's time for you to come back, right?
Hi there and welcome to yet another episode of The Learning Curve done by Snap Ark Global. Today I have with me Murtaza Tajbhoy. Murtaza, it's great to have you on the show. Murtaza is a advertising titan in his own right with over 20 years of experience in the industry. And he is currently at Stax, a global consulting firm working on management and strategy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And good job on my name. Not many people can get it right the first time.
Yeah, I also have that sort of issue with Jashan. You know, a lot of people say Jagger, Sodhi. Right. So like completely relate. And I'm particularly on pronouncing it right.
Absolutely.
So let me start things off by asking you post-school, where your career really started. I know advertising 2 decades ago is not as glamorous and, not kind of the industry that many parents would have been like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So what was your decision? Like, where did that come from to start advertising? And how has that led you to where you are today?
Because I had nothing better to do.
Honestly.
It was the easiest thing to fall into.
Right.
But if I go back a little bit. But before that, let me kind of start by saying, this is the first time I'm on a podcast. So everything that I say here really is, I think it's more of a platform for all the learnings that I've had from the people throughout my career, right? So I'm using this more as a platform to share the wisdom that they have shared with me. That being said, because I don't think my story is really interesting.
No. We beg to differ.
Let's see. So if I go back a little bit before I started in advertising, right? I want to kind of touch upon my experience at school because I think that's important to this whole thought of how you sometimes need to put yourself in uncomfortable positions just to learn and grow.
Yeah.
Right. So I always, when I look back to my school, feel that my school years were quite comfortable. Right. If I think of myself as an animal, I think of myself as a hedgehog. I would curl myself up into a little ball and hide in the library.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that's essentially what I remember from my school days. Okay. Right. So it was always that safe space for me to, typically explore new worlds and get lost in the world of books. When everything around me was chaos and you know how school is, right? I wanted to be away from all of that, right? So that hence my sort of introverted personality, at least in the beginning part of my years, of my school days. And I think that fact that I was so comfortable and I liked comfort, I liked familiarity. As soon as I left school, I wanted to get away from that.
Okay.
Right? I wanted to try different things.
So
I wanted to break out.
Something completely new.
Absolutely,
right?
Because when I think back to the kind of books I read, right, it was all about fantasy, it was all about adventure, Wilbur Smith and Terry Pratchett and Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, and it was all about
adventure.
It was new worlds, new excitement, and I was like, hey, look, my life has been so comfortable so far. I want to try all of those things. So that's kind of what spurred me on. And again, looking back, it was that feeling of putting myself into situations where I'm not that familiar with, and that was exciting, right? So even before I got into advertising, and these experiences kind of helped me in my advertising career. First thing I did was, after leaving school, I joined a metal band.
Wow, I did not see that coming.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
And I was part of the then not so famous band which became famous after I left. I always like to say.
Can I ask the name?
Stigmata.
No way.
Yeah, I was one of the founding members. But this was so long ago. We were not even known by the name Stigmata. We had a completely different name.
Okay.
But the original members, us.
What were you, a vocalist or like a?
I was a bassist because that was the easiest thing to pick up. So it was in CIM that I met a guy by the name of Harsha, who got me excited about advertising, right? And he was talking about the glamour, the parties, the fun, all of that you rightly said. Advertising had that whole aura of that excited me, as it would anybody, right? So like, okay, this seems interesting. And I literally opened, again, I'm kind of giving you a hint of my age. I opened the Yellow Pages, and I applied to every single agency that was there in the Yellow Pages, and eventually got a job at Leo Burnett.
Wow, that's fascinating. I like to pick up on one thing you said about the learnings that you got in those uncomfortable situations. I think you were quite fortunate to discover that you like certain creative pursuits, and you were not afraid to do it, regardless of how perfect you are in doing them. Those are key risks, I think, anyone, a young person at that age would have taken. But talking a bit about the people that shaped you at that time, were there key figures that you think, maybe perhaps your parents or anyone in the family or maybe your friends, that said, you should do it?
So two things. One, I think I had the travel bug from my father. Right? He would enjoy spending more time out in the outdoors than be at home, right? So he's literally walked from Colombo to Kandy multiple times, slept in temples, walked,
okay, wow.
Right? He was from Kandy. My brother and my uncles have been part of the scouting movement, right? So they're constantly out there in nature. Camping. They used to go for jamborees and camping and things like that, right? So I've got that, I think, from them. And I think my mom, right, she was always like, oh yeah, okay, go, do it. Right? And see whether you enjoy. She was always encouraging, right? If I don't come home for 2 days, she's going to be like, okay, fine, whatever. Right?
That's not often, I think, in Sri Lankan context, but
I know.
That's amazing.
She was fabulously supportive of whatever I did.
Yeah.
And always pushing me to, try something different, do something, explore, take a risk, do something I've not done before.
Yeah. So you entered the advertising, the field, and you were there for quite some time, considerable amount of time, I would say. What were some of the, I guess, opportunities or challenges that you experienced throughout that journey? If I can mention, it was over 2 decades, if I'm not right, of being in the advertising field. You started out were you a designer? Were you more into copywriting? And what were some of those projects that really shaped who you are?
So I joined advertising after spending about 3 months selling mobile phones. At that time, the phone that everybody was really crazy about was called the Alcatel One Touch. Right. It was the first color phone.
No, I remember seeing it, yeah.
And it was the first phone that allowed you to send SMSs. And I think it had a battery that lasted for 3 days. Right? So I realized I sucked. I was really bad at selling phones, but I really enjoyed talking to people. Right. So I would spend hours in front of a customer, but I would walk back into office with not a single phone sold. And I remember getting really, really scolded by my then manager. What are you doing? And he literally told me, a lady in a vegetable stall can sell more than what you can sell.
Harsh.
So, it was harsh. So I knew I was never going to be in a sales job. So advertising was interesting. When I joined in 2000, I joined as a trainee. I didn't know what I was going to do, right? Because I had obviously no experience doing advertising. I remember our client then was Odell, and the first job that I had to do was buy saplings from Ratmalana, from the nursery over there, because they were having an event at Odell on tree planting day.
Wow.
Right. So I had to make the deal. I had to close the deal. I had to arrange transport for 300 saplings. I still remember that experience, which was quite fun. I was like, okay, this is what advertising is. I can do this. But I think my looking back, what I really sort of experienced and learned from in my years in advertising was, firstly, I had an amazing boss, Ranil De Silva, right? He was my mentor, and he's like the guru of advertising here in Sri Lanka. So I was very lucky to learn from him. The thing, though, what he really did was he really encouraged us to travel. And that's I was thinking about this, right? What did I really pick up from my years in advertising? And a lot of it was through my travels, right? So we would, for example, go for these award festivals, we would go for these conferences, we would go for seminars, we would go for client meetings overseas. Right? And he would always say, take a few extra days off, explore and come back. Right? I remember once I took 20 days and he was like trying to call me and like, it's time for you to come back. Right? But I think it was through travel that I've really learned the most that I've learned in advertising. And of course, along with travel comes the people that you meet, the experiences that you have, and so on and so forth, right? That has been amazing memories. As much as, the people that you work with, the brands you worked with, the industries you worked on, and so on and so forth. But all of that put together, I think it's those memories that I have from travel that really stay with me.
If I can like put you on the spot here for a little.
Yeah.
And ask, in your years of traveling abroad, what were some of the countries that really stood out to you in terms of the people that you met, the food that you tried, or the experience that you had that really, you carry with you every day?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's not so much the countries that I've visited that really stay with me, but what I did and how I traveled.
Okay.
Right? I didn't know this about me at the time, but the way I travel, for example, what I would do is I would reach out, let's say I'm going to France or Malaysia or India or any country, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I would reach out to somebody and say, hey, look, I'm coming there for 2 days. Can I stay at your place?
Okay.
And they literally say that, look, I have a couch. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Sleep in the hall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I sleep in the hall.
Yeah.
So I realized that there's a network of people around the world, which I was able to access through this organization called Couchsurfing. If you've never heard of it.
Oh, no,
right?
I haven't. Okay.
So it's really cool. It's like Facebook, but it's for travelers, where you reach out, you log in, you
It's like
create a
Airbnb
profile.
before Airbnb?
Well, Airbnb still
Shared.
exists, except that here you don't pay. You don't pay a cent.
So they're like volunteering their space
Exactly.
for anyone.
And likewise, I did the same.
Okay.
Right? So I've
Sri
had
Lanka.
like over, 5-6 years, I've had 20-30 people from all over the world stay with me, just like I have stayed with people wherever I have traveled to. And that has been so amazing.
Wow.
So that's one thing, right? It's not that I wanted to be cheap. It's just that I found the experience of living with somebody so much more rewarding than staying in a hotel.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Another experience I had was after visiting Cannes. I went to some random place in the middle of France, in the countryside, and the deal was, you work in my farm, and I will give you free food and lodging.
What sort of farm was this?
So it was something called permaculture. I didn't know what permaculture is.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's a new learning for our audience as well.
So essentially, permaculture is growing whatever you're growing, whatever crop you're growing, but in the most natural way possible.
Like with less fertilizers.
Not just that,
Okay.
right? So imagine walking through a forest, right? You get all kinds of plants. You get hundreds and hundreds, thousands maybe of different species.
Yeah.
And it's not like you get rows of bananas followed by rows of coconuts followed by rows of cabbage or whatever, right? Everything is
everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere. So that's the same principle in permaculture,
Oh,
right? You let one plant support another plant. So so you'll have a mint plant next to a cabbage plant, next to a brinjal plant, next to a tomato plant.
Wow.
Right? And in the natural world,
Yeah.
what happens is that one plant helps another plant. So if the leaves from, for example, a spearmint fall down onto the ground, that protects the cabbage from insects coming and attacking it.
No way. Wow. This is new. For
Right?
me.
So it was amazing.
This
So
is
I had
incredible.
like maybe half an acre of land that I had to dig and take care of and help this person. But it was amazing. Like she took me in like as though I was her son, right?
Wow.
And I spent time with them, 10 days, just kind of mushroom plucking, visiting music festivals, going rock climbing with them. Like it was unbelievable. And every night was really cool because every night they would have dinner, they would have a meal, they would invite their friends over. Every night it was. And then they would, at the end of the meal, they would kind of pull whatever instruments they had and sing. No TV, no
This sounds like a TV show, honestly. You lived a movie.
Absolutely. It was deep rooted. I can't even tell you the name of the place because I don't know where it was. I took a train, I took a bus, and I think I took a train, a bus, and I had to hitchhike to get to her place.
But I mean, so worth it, like especially because you got to meet the locals, live with the locals, and experience their culture. And this was before I guess smartphones were a big distraction in that sense, right?
I mean,
So
even if smartphones were a distraction, it wouldn't work there.
it wouldn't.
And we wouldn't know
Signal,
what to do.
no network. But
Yeah.
that's incredible. So I like that you spoke a lot about traveling
Yeah.
and what you learn when you travel. I think this is something like even those watching back at home can really start to explore, because there's something you gain from traveling that school or university or any book can't teach you.
And I'll tell you, so we actually applied that to our work during advertising, right?
Okay.
We almost made it a mandate that every month we would go out,
Right.
and we called it the Dirty Feet program. We'll get our feet dirty. Okay,
Yeah.
so, and this was while I was in advertising. So I take a team with me, and we'll go to all parts of the country. We'll take a bus, we'll take a train, right? We'll go visit a rural village. We'll talk to farmers in wherever, part of the country that we are. And it's not research. We just want to understand how they live their life. What gives them joy? What gives them pain? What are their frustrations right now?
Right.
How they interact with products? How they wake up in the morning and cook their meals? What meals they cook?
Right.
And through that, we understand how they live. We know what really, what experiences bring them joy and sadness, and we bring that into our work.
Advertising obviously is something that keeps you on a tour, something you have to keep learning or like engaging in. After all this time, what keeps you curious, in this whole aspect of work?
I think it was Leo Burnett, the man himself, who said curiosity in all aspects of life, it is what makes a great advertising person, right? And I've really taken that to heart. And along with that, I believe that it is almost mandatory for every human being to be constantly learning, no matter their age, no matter their position, status, whatever, right? But it also keeps me going, because I feel that when I learn, I challenge my assumptions and I grow, right? It's like, you take a tree, for example, you break it, you put it together, it'll grow stronger, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that and so how do I learn, right? Is it textbooks? Yes, I did my master's, because you have to do your master's, right? Doing an MBA is almost a mandatory now.
Yeah.
And it was great learning from a more sort of formal setting. But when I look back at what I learned through that whole experience, in doing my master's, I think was more about how to structure my thinking.
Okay.
Right? How you need to have a logical thinking, how you need to have data to back everything that you say. That was what was really, really useful for me, and that's something that I use day in, day out today. Also, again, what I learned a lot from during my master's was through my thesis, which was about which was something that I think was quite different, that a lot of people had not done. And I remember my professor also getting really excited by it, which was about, now everybody studies entrepreneurs and what makes them successful.
Sure.
But what I wanted to do was study what makes beta entrepreneurs successful.
Wow. Okay.
So I literally went along with my study, sort of my study partner, I guess.
Right.
We did this research together. We walked the streets of PETA, right? And we identified people who were successful, businessmen.
Yeah.
And we spoke to them, we talked to them. We had long 2-3 hour conversations with them. And through those conversations, through understanding their journey and their stories, we were able to identify certain things that made them successful. So that, for me, was giving back, bringing knowledge, new knowledge back into the world was really exciting. Apart from that, I think it's just these... So earlier I said that I was a hedgehog, right? Now I think my spirit animal has become a cat.
Like
right.
indoors kind of person?
No, the kind of cat that's curious and gets into all kinds of trouble.
Right.
And wants to try different things and wants to, it just can't stay in one place.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes to your own, fault.
Correct. So I think I was trying to, I feel like I've collected experiences like other people collect stamps, right?
Okay.
So I've done like a number of different things, whether it is learning how to play the flute, right? The bamboo flute, the South Indian bamboo flute, from a master who could not speak any English, and I could not speak any Tamil.
Okay.
Right, but I don't know how we communicated, but for 2 years, he was my guru.
Wow.
Then I have, right now I'm learning horse riding.
Okay.
I have done scuba diving, and I love that. Right, it's an amazing experience. I love swimming in the ocean. I love water in general. So I thought I might as well try my hand at surfing. Right.
What better country, Sri Lanka? You have
Exactly,
all of
right.
that.
Exactly. Amazing experiences. Along with traveling, I love camping. Right. In proper Bear Grylls style.
Okay.
Right. So
rough it out. Like
rough it
Max.
out. I am
down for anything.
Down for anything, and my favorite experiences are when I travel alone. So I just get off a bus.
Right.
I just have
Middle
a small
of
backpack, middle of nowhere, climb the nearest mountain I can find, spend the night and come back. Right. So that kind of thing really, really excites me. Right now, my latest passion is calisthenics. It's something I've just recently picked up, especially after during lockdown.
Yeah.
I had to keep moving.
Home
Right.
workouts,
Had home workouts. Had to do something different. And honestly, that kept me going, because if not, I would have just gone nuts staying at home, right? So just burning whatever energy that you have. Coffee has become another passion of mine.
Like making coffee?
Making coffee from, the whole
process from brewing, like that, the grinding the beans,
exactly,
all
right.
of that.
I have like one whole shelf of cupboard space, very important real estate in the kitchen that belongs to all my coffee gadgets. So I think what I'm trying to say is that doing all of these different things, right, from the time I left school to now, has really kept me going and given me new experiences to learn from. Right? Not only do I learn about myself, I learn about the world, and I can bring those experiences back into my work.
So some key takeaways, from that conversation we were having. I think it's important to always let your curiosity drive you, and don't be afraid to start new things.
Be more cat.
Be more cat. Yeah, exactly. Even though all the dog lovers at home are cursing us. But I think it's important to not be afraid to try new things. I think that's something, especially these days, a lot of people try to evaluate the risk versus benefit too much, right? And even if it's starting a new hobby or starting a new sport, they think, okay, do I really have the time for this? Not realizing that these are experiences that kind of shape us as a person, right? And like you could list off, you're like a sort of a jack of all trades. I think you're more the exception, but even if it is trying a different style of working out at home, calisthenics is one, but like, HIIT exercise. I'm just saying, people I think these days should be willing to take that risk of learning something new, right? I want to sort of segue into what you've learned. You've been in the industry for quite some time. Some lessons that you've taken away from the best brands or marketers, things that you have learned.
Sure. So again, traveling around, meeting so many different people, I think that has really shaped how I work, what I believe, and what's really important to me. Right. Yeah. Early on in my career, there was a guy by the name of Cash Sri. Okay. Cash. He was.
Not the accountant.
No. I think he was an Indian, but he was working in the US, and he was behind a very famous multiple award-winning campaign called Shadow Running, and many more. Right. I remember hearing a speech that he had made, which was, again, I think which has really kind of driven my approach to life and to learning, right? Which was about trying new things, okay? And that's kind of what I've been doing my entire life and what I've been telling other people to do, right? Don't be afraid. You don't know it, that's fine, you can learn, right? Because the more you try, the more you do, the stronger you will become, the more experiences you can draw from, right? And it helps you face your fears, right? And I remember on stage, he said, how many of you guys have been to prison? I was in prison. Let's not go there. How many of you guys have faced your fear? I'm terribly afraid of heights, but that hasn't stopped me from, traversing the top of a mountain or whatever. Or bungee jumping for that matter.
Wow. I would never.
Not when you're afraid of heights.
Nightmare.
And it's those sort of experiences, I think, along with the people that I've met. I think another really amazing, strong mentor of mine was a lady who's no more with us, by the name of Yasmin Ahmad.
Okay.
I remember she is a guru of advertising. She comes from Malaysia.
Right.
She essentially made Petronas a household name, not just in Malaysia but around the world, right? Through her communication, that was really about people. It was not about brand. End of the day, it's not about trying to sell more oil. Petronas is an oil company, right? It was about how brands, not just Petronas, but how brands can relate to people, inspire people to do things differently. I remember going to picking her up from the airport one day. She had come to Sri Lanka, right? And it was late in the night, I think. And I was in my boss's car. She was at the back seat. She rolled down the windows and stuck her entire body out and howled at the moon.
What an introduction to meeting someone.
Exactly, right? And whole thing was, be yourself. If you want to howl at the moon, just howl at the moon. Don't be afraid of what other people think.
Yeah. Honestly, we sometimes box ourselves in too much because we think, okay, what's this person going to say? What is that person going to say? And that kind of limits us in trying things that we're naturally even good at. Correct. Even if it's someone who's, studied accounts their whole life who suddenly wants to do dancing, they might think it's too late for me. But this is something like, there's no age that you stop learning, like you're saying, right? The journey is consistent, and school and university aren't the only places we learn. We learn at life, like you've.
I will always tell my team, right? The best learning is by doing, right? Because through doing anything, right? It doesn't mean textbook learning. It doesn't mean learning data science or whatever it is, right? Just do something, anything, and keep doing it. Through that, you will meet people, and you will automatically learn. Yeah. So that's kind of driven everything that I've been
doing this so far. Yeah. At this point, I would like to sort of touch on a recent shift that you've made after over 2 decades in the advertising industry. You've again taken that risk, I would say, of learning something new and challenging yourself by going into consulting and entering Stax as a global consulting firm. What was the driving thoughts behind making that switch?
I felt I was becoming more hedgehog.
Again,
right?
Okay.
I was probably I really enjoyed what I was doing, but I felt there was much more to learn. Right? I was becoming too comfortable. And I know maybe I could have done it sooner. I don't know. But whatever it is, I decided that it's time for me to learn. So I was learning a lot about branding and marketing, but I wanted to learn about business, right? I wanted to learn how businesses can, leverage and drive growth. I wanted to learn about technology. I wanted to learn about what's happening in the world outside of Sri Lanka, right? And the amazing thing about Stax is that we are working with private equity firms who are investing in the Fortune 500 companies of the next 10 years. Wow. So they are literally at the cutting edge, right? They are seeing what's going to come, what's new, what's exciting, what's going to drive and shift the world, right? And that's really amazing. We're helping them make those decisions. So anyway, I was like, even before Stax, I was like, okay, what can I do differently that puts me outside my comfort zone, but kind of still similar territory, which was about, understand. Honestly, I guess whatever I do, whether I was in advertising or whether I'm in consultancy at Stax, is about trying to help businesses grow. It's about trying to understand what problems they have and how can we help solve those problems, right? That's fundamentally the core and the kind of common denominator. So I thought it would be a natural shift for me, and I think I was blessed enough to be accepted by Stax almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah, okay, that's incredible. As someone who is, in branding and, in this space, I just want to ask a quick question. What do you think most brands could do that could seriously up their game? As someone who's been somewhat of an expert, I would say, what do you think someone at home today, even if it's a personal brand or even if it's an organization, what do you think they could do that could just seriously up their game?
I think, firstly, I'm no expert. There are many more experts out there that you can learn from, and I think that's the key point, right? Identify people, right, who you can learn from. Right? Whether it is people who are bringing new thinking into the world of marketing and branding, people like, Mark Ritson, Professor Byron Sharp, right? These are people who are really kind of challenging preconceived notions. They're saying, we always used to think that we have to segment the market. Now people are saying we don't need to segment the market, right? Why are they saying? What's driving that? When you think about it, marketing is a really young field compared to, astronomy, arithmetics, sciences.
Boom of the internet sort of created what it is.
It's just what Philip Kotler came out with his book in the 70s, 80s, I think.
Okay.
So it's really young.
Okay.
Compared to some of the world sciences. So there's a lot that we still don't know
about the work.
And I think identifying and learning from experts around the world becomes really important. Number one. The second thing I would say is to keep things really simple. We sometimes overcomplicate it, too much jargon, too much, overthinking. We used to have a sign in our office that said, the larger the slide deck, the more the bullshit, right? Longer the workshop, the less you learn anything. Sorry, I know you guys do workshops all the time. But sometimes it's important to be focused and really boil down to what matters and where you can really drive value. Okay, so sometimes we have too many formats, too many presentations, too many frameworks, right, that really distract from the core problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, sometimes using lesser tools, even if that is what it takes to derive the ideas or the brainstorming that needs to happen. Keeping it simple, I think, works for every single problem that we're facing. Right. I just want to maybe ask you if there's anything you'd like to tell our audience about, from your years of experience or something in life that you learned, something a mentor shared that really stayed with you and shapes who you are.
Sure.
What would that be?
So recently I came across this Japanese concept called ikigai. Okay, and the Japanese are just kind of masters at what they do in every field, including advertising, right? Their work doesn't get as much recognition in sort of the global stage as much as it should, but the way they think is just fantastic. So ikigai is the whole concept of trying to understand what would drive meaning in your life. Okay, and it's really simple. Really, it kind of combines what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and what you will get paid to do. Those four things kind of intersect into what ikigai is all about, right? Once you understand that, it can really drive everything that you do. And we used the concept of ikigai recently to create an internship program at our organization, right?
Yeah.
So it can drive what you do in life. It can drive your next career choice. It can drive the next book you read. It can drive the next hobby you want to pick up. Right?
It's applicable in every
applicable
sector.
in everything that you do. Check it out. It's called Ikigai.
So it's IKIGAI. Is that
yes,
right?
I believe so.
Ikigai.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Like, I think this question about purpose is something a lot of people struggle with. Even whatever age you're at, am I fulfilling my purpose? And as someone who has kind of done a lot of things, how did you find what you're naturally good at?
I don't know what I'm good at. Honestly, I don't know,
yeah.
Right? And that kind of drives me, I feel. I don't, as many as, the pursuits I've kind of followed, whether it's archery or music or whatever it is, right? I don't think I'm really good at any of them. Okay? But I sometimes think that's okay. Because my whole thing is the more I try, the more I do, the more I learn, and the more I grow. Right? So I don't know what my purpose is in life.
Yeah.
And it's fine, right? Everybody says you have to have a purpose. You need to have this kind of large overriding statement that drives everything that you do. But as long as you're enjoying what you do, as long as it gives meaning to you, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Are you in pursuit of, still learning? You're still learning about yourself.
Correct.
I think that's also something key. We think we figured ourselves out, but every year we sort of become more us. Right?
Exactly.
Right?
The more you do, the more you learn about yourself. I feel that what drives me now and what I really enjoy is sharing everything that I've learned with youngsters. Right? I feel that if I had a mentor when I was younger, right, and I did have many mentors throughout my life, but maybe at the stage that I needed, if I had a mentor, I could have done something completely different, right? And I think it's really important for youngsters to have a mentorship and to learn and have opportunities to learn from others.
Right.
So yeah, I think that really gives me kind of joy right now at this stage in my life, at least.
So you would advocate, in the sense, to have that sort of someone older who's done different jobs, or like who's gone through maybe your own industry,
Correct.
who can really give you that advice you need, right?
And I feel also a leader, the leaders that I'm learning from, right? They are not just executors anymore; they're educators,
Yeah.
right?
That-
And the
that
best
change
leader
happened, yeah.
is somebody who can change their way of working. Right? It's not just about delegation. It's not just about making sure somebody does what they need to do and has all the tools to do it.
Right.
It's about seeing whether that person is growing. Right? My boss used to always say, if you become obsolete, that's fantastic. You have to make yourself obsolete, right? Because the next person then has room to grow into what you are doing.
Wow, amazing. Work towards obsolescence is something I will definitely remember. This has been a fantastic conversation, Murtaza. We really appreciate you coming here and giving us your time. Thank you to all of us who joined in, also watching this episode. This has been another fascinating conversation filled with insights here at The Learning Curve. Join us next week for a whole new episode. Thank you to Murtaza once again.
No worries, my pleasure.
Okay.
Take care.